Hi, this is Ruth Ann Gallagher, and I want to talk about 4 different learning styles. And I want to also talk a little bit about our English as second language or English language learners. Now, let me talk to you about the 4 learning styles. The first one that we're going to talk about is, of course, the reading and writing processing style. Then the second one we're going to talk about is the auditory learner. After we talk about those two, we then want to talk about our kinesthetic learner, and then finally we want to talk about our visual learner. Now, when we talk about those 4 learning styles, it's vitally important that we understand students learn differently, and they have strengths in all those areas, but one of those areas is probably stronger than another. Let me give you an example. A number of years ago, about 20 years ago now, my Ford Escort was having some challenges, so I took it over to our auto mechanic shop, and 3 of the students that were in my writing class are in the shop, and they're like, "Hey, how can we help you? What can we do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm having some trouble with my Ford Escort, and I need to get home." And so my auditory learner said, "Hey, let me listen to the engine." And my kinesthetic learner said, hey, open up the hood. I want to get in there and see if all the cables are connected. And my visual learner's like, "Hey, let me walk around the car. Let's put the car up on the hoist. I want to see underneath the car." And then up pops a formal text processing learner or a reading and writing learner. He's like, "Oh, no, you guys got it wrong. We need to go to the Chilton Manual. And we need to look up if there was any recalls on 1985 Ford Escorts." So again, 4 different learning styles, extremely important that we understand how to work with these students. Now the first one again is formal text processing. They like to create lists and headings, make an outline, and use computer lecture notes. The next one's the auditory learners. Class attendance, extremely important always. They focus on lectures, discussions, and tutorials. They like to tape lectures for later review. Let me give you an example of these students. A couple years ago, I had a lot of soccer players in my class, and they were just so much fun. But they talked and talked and talked, and I'm like, I have to do something. So I decided to shift my class around, and primarily we would read material and have lots of class discussions. So that class turned into a class discussion in a lot of ways, which worked well. Then the next one was a kinesthetic learner. Years ago I had some HVAC students, great guys. They started class at 8 o'clock. By 3 o'clock when my writing class started, they were a little tired and they didn't want to sit and read through some material. So I'm like, "Oh man, we have to cover this material." So I said to them, "Hey, give me your textbook. We're going to take the questions at the end. I'm going to Xerox those questions for everybody in class. While you're reading through this text material, which you have to get, you're going to answer those questions. And I'm going to put you in groups of 3, and you're going to compete against the other students in the class to see who can get the most answers correct on the questions prior to the end of class." Worked well. Now, this is important that we think about the learning styles of our students. So, if they're formal text processors, read and writers, they need to preview the assignment, they need to look at keywords, reread notes, and use flashcards. The auditory learners discuss material, summarize notes, read text sometimes out loud, and definitely work with a study group and tutors. The kinesthetic learners, these are a little bit different people in the sense that they need to be walking around. So if they're studying flashcards, maybe they're learning new vocabulary or terms, they want to be walking around when they're using their flashcards to learn new information. Or if they're on their phone doing Quizlet, they're walking around. Now they need more frequent breaks. After 25 minutes, get them up walking around. Also, flashcards work for them and using their computer to retype notes. Finally, we have our visual learners. Before reading a chapter, definitely scan headings. They also need flashcards, but also charts, maps, posters, video, and computers to enhance learning. Then we have our English language learners. Let me give you an example. Last year, I had a wonderful student in my class, and he would write an essay, and his thesis was always at the end of the essay. I'm like, why does he always put his thesis at the end? Because we had talked a lot about thesis, and he just consistently did this. So I talked to our ESL specialist, and she's like, "What country is he from?" I'm like, "He's from France." She's like, "Well, that's why. In his country, they format essays differently than we do in the United States." So I had to shift the way I worked with him and say, "Hey, we need to write a more American essay now." So again, all your students are vitally important, but it's important for us to kind of shift based on their learning styles. Thank you so much.